right, let's see. I was supposed to open some issues last week and I forgot to. I need to do that before tomorrow when we have Wix Triage. Be able to join me tomorrow. And Sean and Bob. And we will do what we always do in the Wix online meeting, which is triage. Let's see. Do I want this? Or this? I don't know which I want. Let's just do. I have so many options to choose from. I'll do it here. We'll do this one. Wix 4, repo, Shaw, this. All right. We'll get started in 2 minutes. I'm just going to kind of bang on these issues real quick. Let's see. Right, I need to open that issue too. Chill music. Keep it going. All right, let's see. What are we doing here? Just like that. Yeah, okay. Cool. All right. Should KB attribute be removed from MSU package element and/or the name of it, Wix bundle MSU package symbol? That's the detail. As per, I'm in issues. I'm in issues number 6749. Hey, I'm just chilling. You're welcome to hang out, say hi, whatever's going on. Having a good time, a little music, and I'll get the show started here in a minute or so. So I'm just mumbling to myself as I clean up after last week where I was supposed to open some issues and I didn't get that done, so I'm doing that. The main thing I'm doing is saying, as per 649, the KB attribute should not be used to remove MSU packages because Windows no longer supports the silent removal of MSUs. I'm going to have to pick this up later. I only have 40 seconds left. No modern sports. Should we remove the KB attribute? I kinda like having it for documentation purposes, but no other strong argument. Additionally, should we remove the KB field from the Wix bundle MSU package symbol? Alright. Let's submit that issue for triage. There we go. We'll pick that up. Alright, cool. Let's go ahead and get this show started. You guys ready? I think we are. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Here we go. Greetings, programs. This is Let's Code a Full 90, where we take the next hour and a half and dig into some source code and try to make our part of the world a little bit of a better place. I'm your host, Rob Menching, and today we are digging into the Wix toolset. I mean, what else would we be doing? So what we've been doing for these last 25 weeks. We're in week 26, episode 26, because it's weekly. Yay. And we're picking up where we left off last week, which shouldn't be a surprise. It's kind of the thing of to do these days. Let's see. What is that? Well, going to our usual to-do list here. We took care of the remote payloads after many weeks. That was nice to handle. And then we started tackling the MSU package, and we left it with a bunch of issues in the unit test. We'll go fix those. That'll be like one of the first big things to to do, is to essentially finish off all the code and make sure all the tests are fixed up. And then I had a reminder here that we need to go into the converter because we made the choice to remove the permanent attribute. And since MSU packages can no longer be silently uninstalled, permanent doesn't make any sense because we're not going to uninstall them, so they're always permanent, which honestly they probably should have been anyway, because uninstalling an MSU is like modifying the system. Anyway, that's essentially what this is all about. We're just kind of making it official that you're not going to be able to remove MSU packages once you install them in your bundle. It's a one-way trip onto the machine. Presumably you need the bug fix from Windows, and if someone wants to remove that MSU, they can do so by through the UI or using the wusa command directly. All right. All that said, we need to finish this, the tests, fixing the tests. We need to then go into the converter and make sure it handles the permanent attribute, and then we'll go pick up another issue. One thing I will note that we may not be done here today because I have just opened an issue about whether we should remove the KB attribute from the language itself. So yes, I know this is about, the KB number being deprecated, but still it seemed like a nice documentation thing, and I kind of go flip-flop back and forth. So we have the Wix online meeting 237, I think, tomorrow. That's a lot of meetings. Anyway, we'll do triage there, so I'm making sure I'm trying to get that issue open so that we can triage it when everybody's there and bigger brains than mine can discuss and decide if I'm just being nostalgic for keeping this data around, and it's, what did Bob call it? Digital trash? I forgot what he called it. Something. It was a good word for what I was keeping it around for. Or if, the self-documenting kind of thing has value. Anyway, so I've opened that issue, and we'll talk about that tomorrow. So let's go ahead and take care of this MSU thing, and then we'll jump down, and I think we're going to end up back in the preprocessor and look at this issue, make the preprocessor a little bit friendlier to use. And then we'll see where we're at. Maybe we'll get one after that. Digital hoarding. Thank you, Bob. Thank you. Digital hoarding. That was the term. And it seems completely and absolutely appropriate for this. And whether it's nostalgia or self-documented code, I guess we'll discuss tomorrow. All right, let's go get in the code. All right. I said last week we left this parked really hard on the downhill, aka we would know exactly where to pick up, and we would know where to pick up by these error messages that nCrunch has so friendlyly brought back for me. And let's just go look at where this thing is failing. This test is failing here. MSU payloads element source file certificate public key or hash was not found. So this is essentially looking for, you have to pick one of these different ways of describing your data. And instead we're getting the error message, the MSU element contains unexpected attribute permanent. I think the solution to this is to remove the permanent attribute because we're not really testing that. And this had permanent on it before, probably to avoid having an uninstall command or a KB number or something. Anyway, net result of removing that should give me a green. Yay, that test is now happy. And I have a feeling that actually a lot of these are going to be that we've removed permanent from the world, and so these tests that are focused on other things are getting this MSU packages noise and blocking the real error message that we want to test. Here we are again. The download element is not found. So let's go, specified hash and missing download URL. So let's go look at that one. Again, we don't need permanent here anymore. Permanent is the thing of MSU packages now. And I bet that test will go green. Yay. Last one. I wonder if this is the same thing. Yeah, I can see it here. The error, the test failed because probably the diverse payload bundle has permanent in it. There's an MSU package. Permanent equals yes. Yep, there we go. Cool. Does that get all the tests? All right. All right. That pretty much proves that we don't have permanent needs anymore. All those tests are passing. That's good. Okay. So we're not done here. We need to go into the converter because as that code just showed us, anybody that's coming from Wix 3 could end up in the same place where they have a permanent attribute on the MSU package, and the converter exists to protect against that. So I'm hoping I can just go in here. You know what? I'm done with these pins. Thank you, NCrunch. We're all green. Let's go look in the converters, and we have all these fixtures. I'm looking for one. There's an XE package. So it's fixing up the XE package. We probably will need one for MSU package because I guess there's nothing special here. Yep. All right. So I will create an MSU package fixture for our very specialized changes that we want to fix on MSU packages, namely remove the permanent attribute. And in the future, based off of the Wix Online meeting, we may be removing the KB attribute as well. So let's make sure when we do this that it won't be hard to remove the KB attribute because I have a sneaky suspicion that given Bob's fairly negative connotation to my nostalgia for keeping old attributes around, he's going to vote against it. And I'm going to be honest right now, little preview of tomorrow, I don't have a strong reason to keep it. So we'll go from there. All right, let's go ahead and can convert the I think we just want to remove. Can remove MSU package permanent attribute. MSU package deprecated permanent attribute. All right, cool. Now we need to change this to an XE package. Did I leave any of those? I didn't leave any of those other. Oh, there we go. Permanent MSU package. You know what? I like the looks of that. Let's go ahead and see what. All right, so here's the XE package. There's a package group with an MSU package and all that kind of good stuff in it. So let's go ahead and. What if I hit that and paste that in? No, not quite. I was hoping that was going to help me get it right. All right, let's go ahead and clean up this code. Single quotes, double quotes, single quotes, double quotes. I'm very happy that XML will allow me to use single quotes so I can put it in a double quoted string. That's quite nice. And let's see. I feel like there's got to be a better way. Oh, did you? I don't like. Snap. I didn't realize that it added all those spaces. Let's see if I can remove them as we go along here. There's not that much stuff here, although those spaces don't really matter. And then this guy. And then we remove the XE package. Oh, commas, because we're doing a string join here, not a plus. Commas. I like that string join, so it's going to put everything together. Why did you have a plus there? That's silly. Anyway, everything should be. There we go. Cool. Let's go ahead and pin this test because I'm going to want to watch it. It's failing right now. I guess we're doing 2 spaces. Yeah, 2 spaces. That's fine. All right, so what do we want? We essentially want this fragment again. Oh, but that's doing individual lines. Okay, that's fine. I want these 3 instead of this one thing. Oh, you know what? I'm gonna change it to MSU package group. Not that it matters. And of course, when it formats it, it decides to use that. We're gonna have it remove the permanent attribute as part of our code. And I think we're getting pretty close here to having that run. All right, cool. So it said expected 3 and it got 0 errors. And that's because the converter is not finding the permanent attribute as a problem because I haven't taught it yet. So really this should be 1, not 0. And then I'm going to need to give it a good message. Let's see, can we write the message here? The MSU package element permanent All right, Rob, spell permanent. There we go. Attribute has been deprecated. You know what? I really should go look at this. It has been deprecated. We should go look at the other messages where we have deprecated. So I will not try to write this whole message and instead go look at the other messages and make sure that mine is consistent. Okay. So what is this test doing? We have our input fragment, our expected fragment. We parse it, we run it through the Wix converter. We should get one error, not zero. We're getting zero right now, so it's failing there. Then we will get our actual lines as nice unformatted. We will compare our error messages to make sure it says the right thing, and then we will compare our expected against the document that has been formatted, and we expect it to look like this, which is essentially our input turned into double quoted without the permanent attribute. There we go. That's what we're doing. Gotta go find the convert document. Here we go, into the converter. Mine is control equal, convert nodes. It has been so long since I've been in here. I have to get my bearings. Now I remember at the top, so at the top there's a whole long list of things that are converted with methods that are called whenever that thing is hit. And I don't see MSU in here. Oh, it is. Nope, is it? Maybe? MSU pack. Convert MSU package element. Great. Convert. All right. Convert suppress signature validation. Obsolete attribute. Signature validation is no longer supported. The attribute will be removed. Okay. Great. Oh, yes, that's right. Suppress signature is gone. And then update cache attribute. Okay. Right. Cache changed from yes, no, always to keep, remove, force. Man, that was an old conversation. I remember talking about that one. All right. Oh, look at that. Mark Stega in here. That's awesome. It's nice to see an unfamiliar name, or a less familiar. No, that's not unfamiliar. That's a less common name. Anyway, he did a nice pass through here, I think, to convert all of our error messages to be more clear when they're converting versus errors, because the Wix convert tool will run both in kind of lint mode or fix mode, where it like says, hey, your code should look like this, versus, hey, I fixed your code to make it look correct. Anyway, this is what I want. I want essentially exactly, not essentially, I want exactly what that's doing. And where do I want to do it? I will do it last. I will put it here. Okay, so this is the Why am I having a problem with permanent today? All right, permanent attribute. Attribute, permanent. Permanent, great. If the permanent attribute is not null, then we will say MSU package permanent obsolete. Yeah, I got it right that time. And then here, the chain package element, all right, the MSU package element contains obsolete that attribute. I guess I could say MSU packages are always, should I tell the story? Are now always permanent. Should I tell the story that Windows removed this feature? Because Windows no longer supports silently removing MSUs. The attribute will be removed, period. And then permanent attribute's name. And then permanent attribute, remove it. Now let's go look at giving this a number. Zoom. All our numbers are down at the bottom, I think. Yes. Oh, I'm gonna need the message too. Anyway. Hey, look, that bundle cache package attribute is one of the last things we added too, because it's at the end of the list. Let's see, other things. Software tag type obsolete. What did this say? Where are you used? Oh, come on. Is that not used anymore? Okay. Interesting. The element contains obsolete that attribute. The attribute will be removed. Okay. So I added more of a story behind why this attribute was moved. I don't know, that seems, I don't know. Seems like not a bad thing to say. All right, cool. So we did that. Now I need to go back to my fixture, and this will now say converted with this very long message. Story. I'm telling a story. That's what it is. And then I need to get the name of the item. Oh, so close. Okay. Converted the, oh, I said %0. This is actually supposed to be the permanent. Man, I am not spelling that today. Permanent. There we go. Permanent. Woo, look at that. Boom, first time. So now we have a test that we will remove the deprecated permanent attribute. Can remove MSU package deprecated permanent attribute. Boom. Wow, is that it? Maybe that is it. That feels like about it. Let's go look at all the changes I have on my machine. I've gotten to, all right, so don't do this as often. Should I bring this up? Let me bring it up in code. Let's see, I always say this. Let's bring it up in code and see if it looks okay. MSU package fixture. Yeah, okay, it's bigger. The text is bigger. So yeah, we added this entire file. This is what we were just looking at. We should know what's going on here. This is the MSU package fixture. We added a test to make sure that the MSU, if the MSU still contains permanent attribute, that we catch it. So that's that test. There's our data for that test. Then we went and removed permanent from the tests that don't need to check that. And then in the compiler bundle, we've now said that permanent is not allowed on MSUs. And then down in the MSU handling, we removed all the handling for permanence. That was pretty easy. All the other things have permanence. So we need to unsupport that. And that includes then also the message about the MSU KB attribute, which I have an issue open to talk about. And depending on how that conversation goes, then I will come back and revisit these things here. All right, and then we create the bundle manifest, the burn manifest, sorry. And the purpose there, man, say that fast, was to remove the KB attribute from the burn manifest, because burn is no longer going to deal with this thing, so there's no point in throwing it into the burn manifest, which is hidden data and not usable by anybody. Just a moment, my cat has decided he wants out. Normally he sleeps on my computer through the whole show. I guess today he's decided he's gonna go do something else. Or I'm bugging his nap. All right, compiler, bundle, permanent. That's that until I get an answer on that other issue about the KB being kept around. I'm okay with that. I'm okay leaving this here. So what am I going to do? Before we start on something else, I'm going to stage all this and say that depending on how that other issue goes, this may be all the work needed to finish that issue. I'm not going to commit it. But staging it means it's out of the way for the next set of work to be done. Boom. Awesome. Awesome. All right, we're done with all these extra files. I don't know what that is. Random thing. Oh, yeah, that was my pasting, trying to figure out where the things were differing. I do not need that anymore. Don't save. Thank you. Okay. So I think we have done the converter for the MSU package, and until tomorrow, we're done here. So I think that means we can tackle another issue. Preprocessor conditionals before command line variables created. Preprocessor conditionals execute before command line created. Yeah, I remember it was very interesting the way the person kind of viewed how the preprocessor worked in this one, that they're like, I specified in the command line, but my if and def is checking it before it got defined, and therefore it's not like it's always getting in here or something. And then Bob pointed out that no, the problem is your syntax is wrong, in that You have the if ndef wants only the, here, why am I doing this so small? Let's make this bigger. That the if ndef wants only the name of the variable, not the extra var dot or any of that stuff. And when I thought about this, and Bob had a whole list of things of the ways we can improve the preprocessor to make it less surprising, this is one of them where I think we're going to go look at the if ndef code and see if it makes sense to allow to essentially ignore the $parent wrapper around it and go, yeah, you probably meant the variable, not the value of the variable in there. So essentially allow people to specify it like this, which is a pretty simple mistake. I could see myself putting that syntax on there and being like, wait, why isn't this working? And being weird. So let's go look at the preprocessor real quick. And that takes us back to, well, the preprocessor. Preprocessor, please. Soar.cs. There we go. All right, preprocessor. Preprocessor is still pretty much one big file, 1,500 lines. It's all basically inside here. And we're going to want to look at the if ndef handling, which is going to be right here. And since I have, we can clear that, that's all done. But since I have ncrunch handy dandy, I'm going to pin all the tests that are covering this, which is a lot actually. It's a lot more than I expected to be caring about ndef handling. Let's go look at why that might be. Oh, I bet it's like some version thing at the top of our files or something. All right, no preprocessor instructions in there. Oh, this is not going to find it for me. All right, we have to go jump into test code. Advertised, let's see, test data, product with component group ref. I was going to just search for product at WSS, but I know there's entirely too many tests with that. Product computer ref, and then look at the product. Yeah, there's the if ndef. Yep. All right, so that's why we have so many tests looking at this. It says, if the product code is not specified, use a star. Although, interestingly, I don't think this is used anymore. Oh, no, there it is. Okay. Okay. That's fine. That's fine. So we do have a lot of tests that are currently using the if ndef. But also, interestingly, well, they're using the correct syntax where it's only that. All right, we have a preprocessor in here, test with the, with parens inside it. Whew, that is a fun one. Let's get the environment variable with parens inside it. Let's add a test for the if ndef with a value, with a formatted. What is that syntax? The variable syntax? The parentheses on it? All right, let's see what we see here. Where are you used? File. Let's go see env_parens.wxs. There we go. Oh, in the preprocessor fixture. That would make sense. Okay. Variable redefinition is a warning for each loops. Let's see. Do we have any ndef tests? Nope. If def tests? Nothing in the title of the tests. All right. Supports parens in environment variables. Interestingly, yeah, a lot of these tests are spread out all over the place. Yeah, there's a for each one. Okay. Oh, there's a bad if. That's kind of good. Cool. Let's look at this. So what are we doing here? We're building a whole MSI for the bad if. Interesting. What if we look at the environment variables? Seems like we should be able to do, oh, here it's just running the preprocessor. That's probably enough for our test. Let's just run the preprocessor. Yeah, let's run this. Let's just write a test like this for this case. I'm gonna have to bring my fact down. All right, fact. All right, support if ndef with full variable format. I don't know what to call this. I really don't know what to call this. All right, we'll get that, and I really need to know what this thing is called. If and def with full variable. I do not, that's not great, but we'll start with that. Create a whole new test project for preprocess. Oh, I did. Wow, that's true. There is a whole nother set of, that's right. I totally forgot about that. I just went looking for the tests here in the integration, but I don't need to do them in integration. They could be done in just, wait, where'd it go? Oh, it's in core. There we go. Let's see, and then this just uses that code. Ah, there we go. Thanks, Sean. I'm glad your memory's better than mine. Let's do this. Yeah, we don't need to do a whole integration test. So we could do what I was about to do, but find this file. I don't need this fndef, thank you. Okay, we're done here. But these integration tests they run a little slower. So we don't need to do all of that. They're bigger. They're integration tests. They're meant to do builds and things like that. Honestly, I probably should look at moving that env-parse one out maybe. Not right now, but maybe later. Can prepress falsy? Yes. All right. Is there any ndef in here? Is there any ifdef? Oh, there's no ifdef either. Okay. Can preprocess, falsy, truthy. All right, can preprocess. Right. All this extra stuff so that we could load these as strings and then expect it. Oh, that's great. I like that. Man, who did this? They were very smart. If only they could remember that they were very smart. All right, can preprocess if ndef with, I still don't know what to call this, full variable syntax. I don't like that, but I'm going to do that. All right, no define if ndef variable a fragment if ndef variable a wow, this test is passing. That is not what I expected. Okay, clear the tests, pin this one, and we'll pick up from here. If ndef variable a, okay. Let's write if def with full variable syntax. If def. And we're going to pin this one too. Now this should be, right, so A is not defined. So let's go ahead and bring A down, and it doesn't have to be one. It could just be anything. Can I just do define A? Yeah, that's allowed too. Huh. Well, that's working better than I thought it would. All right, what do I want now? I want a negative test. Wait, why are these? Oh, that's if def. Okay. All right, let's go. Can preprocess with full variable syntax. Bring back my falsy here. If ndef. So I want the A defined. Oh, that's the positive one. This, and then I want this to just be Wix by itself. Okay, I'm impressed that we've gotten this far. Okay, so now let's also add the old school v3 with full variable v3 syntax. I guess I got the falsy one. Var dot, so that's gonna give me the same thing. And we'll make this one, I guess we'll do falsy then truthy. It doesn't really matter. Truthy var dot this I want if no. if ndef. I'm still doing ndef that, and then I want the what? Okay, did this get fixed like before? And we just didn't. Oh, okay, good. Now there's a comparison. All right, let's start. I should have been pinning these tests all along. Okay. Canva this. No, this is now truthy. No. Rob, delete, define. Huh. I'm just a little surprised that this is already working. All right, we have to go look at the code because I don't remember doing this, but I don't remember writing this. I didn't remember writing this. I do remember writing it, but okay. Now that I've made a little bit of a mess of things here. This is truthy. That's false. So this will give me that. Then truth that is defined, not defined, is defined. We get the full syntax, we get the not syntax. Okay. So if ndef syntax. So this is truthy. This is falsy. Now I have v3 syntax falsy. I have v3 syntax truth. Did I get that right? Falsy. False. Wait, this is false? No, this is truth. Truth. This is not false. Wait. These are the same. Wait. My eyes are going cross-eyed here. Here we go. Okay, so is this ndef? All right, good. Now we have it. Good. This didn't seem like it should be working. So it's only in the v3 syntax so far that seems to be upset. Okay, I have to make. All right, let's go. Wix if ndef that. So this. If ndef. Oh, it's not defined. Let's go define it. Define A. Now it's false. A is defined if ndef. All right. Huh. Well, this turned into an exercise of writing a test. I'm not against that. That's pretty awesome. But I do want to go down and look at these in the code. And make sure that we understand why this is not working. I wonder if I accidentally fixed this when I fixed the syntax for doing if statements, and I made it more broad to allow these things. It's a good thing we want this, because otherwise I guess this would have been a bug if I'd been allowing this and we didn't want it. Okay, that's the, yeah, that's fine. False. All right, now let's make sure I've been jumping around too much and make sure I have these right. This is false. Is A defined? No. So you should get that. This is truth. So A is now defined and we get the fragment. Great. This is truth. So A is not defined. So we get the full, yeah, right. We get the full thing. A is not defined. We get the whole thing. Great. Here we're false. A is defined. We don't get that. So we only get the Wix. Great. Now we go to V3 syntax for truthy. Truthy, not defined, that, okay. I don't have a falsy syntax. I don't feel like I need a falsy syntax, but I do feel like I need an if-def case here. And I do want the truthy one. I think I want the truthy one, yes. Not if ndef, I want if-def. Truthy, okay. So that seems to work with the v3 syntax as well, which I guess that's going to tell us that all of these are going through the same code. All right, let's pin these real quick. Pin. All right, and then I'm gonna pick one of them. I want one of the V3 syntax ones. That's what I want. Yeah, so back down where I was with the V3 syntax, if def. So they care about if and def. So we'll do the ndef, truthy, this one. So now I'm gonna tell this nCrunch to only show me coverage for this test, please. Boom, all right. Now, if I go down into the preprocessor, I should see here, yeah, see all this white lines on the side means that it's not, there are tests for that, it's just ignoring them right now. So we're only coming down this test here. And I'm gonna assume we get to this, so, oops, maybe I shouldn't have pinned all those tests. Let's debug this thing. I wanna step through it a little bit. So here's my if context. I'm active. I'm going to go down, trim. If the context is true, then we're going to create a new if context. Oh, aha, there it is. Strip off the start of that. And that's that code I did a long time ago to ignore these or to handle these better. And then check for the variable length. Get the variable value. If we didn't find it, did we find it? Okay. Try it with the var variable, with the prefix. Var prefix, and try to get the values. Yep. Variables, let's look at these. Oh, there are none. Okay. All right, ndef. ndef, it's not going to be there. But it parsed it correctly. Okay. I'm going to cheat, and I'm just going to flip this test around real quick and run it again and see if I get the other answer. Push context value true. Boom. All right. Strip off the front and the end. Get the parts out. It has two parts, the var and the a. Yep. Check for the parts empty. Fine. Now we're going to go in and say, give me the variable for this. Yep. Yep. And our variables contains a. Yeah. So it gets us out a result, which is empty. It's defined, but it's not set to a value, which is fine. It's not null. We allow missing prefixes, and the variable contains a dot. It doesn't, so we don't have to look it up. Yep, there we go. We return the result, which is empty string, which is valid, but true in this case. Great. Yes. Right. And the test is now wrong because I flipped it. I flipped it wrongly. Wow. Cool. So awesome. Yay. Who knew? Who knew that we would be able to jump into that one? That one just turned into, hey, let's write some test code for this. Thanks to Sean for catching the fact that it, oh, right. Wix convert. Did I not save that file before? That's bad. All right, you go up here with all my other test code. I looked at the test code and didn't look at the actual code. Bad, Rob. All right, that goes in that commit. The preprocessor fixes in this thing, which in the end is just add some tests for fixing issue number 6743 was fixed before. This is just adding some tests to verify that it is correct. Groovy. Wow. I did not expect that. Oh, no. Getting ahead of myself. The preprocessor conditionals, 5259. That's what we did. Preprocessor conditionals execute before command line, which is not true. It was just the syntax issue, which now is very consistent. Variable name. All right, so yay, we could check that off. Variable name with loc variable stays unresolved. 6743. This one is going to be interesting. Let's go ahead and jump over to 6743. Yeah, and it looks like there's already a test for it that's going to fail when it comes back. Great, that's awesome. Sean already wrote the test for us. So the variable name has a loc variable in it. It will remain unresolved and ends up in the manifest, in the burn manifest, unresolved. And I had to think about this one for a second when it happened, but then I was like, oh, so the issue is that the variable name is the identifier, I'm pretty sure. Let's go look at the compiler real quick and see how the compiler bundle, let's go find variable, there you are, parse variable attribute, you. Let's go jump down into the compiler. Jump, go. And then we see, here's the name attribute. Variables have names, that's how you refer to them, that's how you use them. It is a required thing. If you don't have it, we will error. Anyway, so then where does that name go? Well, it needs to go into the symbol. And in this case, I chose, I think, probably, that the name would be the identifier for this symbol. So the identifiers for a symbol allow you to do the ref kind of thing, and variables do get refs. So the linker then goes across can jump across refs, and it will bring all your fragments together based off of one thing in a fragment referring to something else. It'll go get the ID of the other side of the thing that you're referring to. So if we have, there's no variable ref, but you can refer variables through like searches and things like that, I think, right? I haven't used bundle variables in long enough to remember all the ways you refer to them. But so that's all fine. This works just perfectly as we go through the whole system. If you just have, variable x equals 5 or variable x equals a word, or it's just a variable. The issue comes in when we have a variable with a name that has a bind variable in it. So the bind variable is a variable that gets resolved very late. All right, so we were just looking at the preprocessor. Let me break this down a little bit. We were just looking at the preprocessor. The preprocessor happens before the compiler, and any variables you have in that are like modifies the code, and then the compiler processes them. So the variables are gone very early in the process. That's why it's called a preprocessor. And that's the var.or. Now the simplified Wix4 syntax is just MS Build syntax of a $parent. There you go. It's a variable. It gets replaced. Now there are more advanced scenarios where you have a bind variable, and there's a few different bind variables. Let's bring up this test: guards against various bundle values from loc. Let's see if we can, guards against various bundles from loc. That was a very unique name. Bundles with invalid loc values. Let's take a look at this code and see if we can find what it's doing here. Okay, so in here we have the bundle, and it has a variable. Okay, I guess this is the case. It's setting this. Oh, here's the variable. All right. So you have a variable whose name is this loc variable. And loc gets handled very late in the build process. So you compile, you link, and then you go through all the resolution where we now find all the files and replace these bind variables. In Wix 3, it was really useful because you could then, it was theoretically very useful. You could compile a bunch of stuff and then link the object files. So you could compile a whole bunch of things, and then you could link with a loc file, say English. It would take the stuff you compiled once, link it, turn it, give you one MSI or a bundle in this case. Then you can link again with the same stuff in the compiler, with a new loc file and get like a German or a Japanese, whatever, any other language bundle MSI you want, or other variables. So the idea is that there are variables that happen late in the binding process, which is the back half. It's like as late as you can get. It's the time before the final output is spat out. And in V4, what we found, well, in V3 we discovered is that compile time savings isn't really that big. So in V4, you just go through and you just build everything one time. You just build and link, and we end up recompiling a few times over, but compiling so fast that it wasn't worth the compile and link separation that V3 had. But V4 does allow you to build libraries. So you can build a set of functionality, compile it once, and then it's a reusable chunk that you can give to many people. And that reusable chunk may have localization stuff in it or other bind variables, which you can replace. So you have a Wixlib that you can then include in somebody else's MSI. And when you include in that MSI, say, hey, I want to use this Wixlib and I want to have the variables in that replaced with English. And this is obviously very important for the UI extension where it has a Wixlib in it and it has lots of UI things, all need to be localized. So, and it actually comes with a lot of loc files, so that you could just say, hey, I want the UI in Japanese, and poof, we pre-created all the UI with all the loc variables for you. Great. All right, I've motivated this entire feature in case you guys haven't dealt with this kind of stuff. And if you have, I'm sorry I've bored you for however many minutes that long, how many minutes I talked about this. But a lot of this is just kind of getting my head back into this space again and what it means. So the issue is that these variable names flow through the compiler and they actually flow through the linker unresolved. So the variable name, the name of this particular variable from the compiler's point of view is this literally bang paren loc dot built-in burn variable name close paren. And when the linker wants to link to it, it links to it with the identifier bang paren loc dot built-in burn variable close paren. So from the compiler and the linker point of view, that highlighted text there is the name. Now, it turns out that bang, paren are not valid characters in a name, so we have actually special casing in the compiler to allow those things to pass through because it trusts that that value will get through the compiler, through the linker, and into the backend and replaced. And in this case, that trust is broken because these do not get replaced. The symbol identifiers do not get localized. And this is an oversight from V3 where they would get localized because symbol identifiers were not a formalized concept in V3. This is a change between V3 and V4. They were not a formalized concept in V3, and it was just kind of like, hey, strings getting stuck together and everything just gets localized at the end, and it was a lot of things just kind of click together as opposed to being specifically labeled, here's the identifier for this symbol. All right, I've told this story because I'm trying to work myself all the way around to the point where I'm like, should we allow these loc variables through the compiler to the linker? I think we have to. So, because I'm just wandering through the options here, or the implications to the language, is essentially what we're doing. You get to join me on this adventure through what does it mean from a compiler point of view that the identifier for this symbol, after the compiler sees it and after the linker sees it, changes and becomes some other value because it was localized, and that result then ends up in the final output. Technically speaking, that should be a problem. But if you were to then walk up to that symbol after the localization process and you said, hey, I want to go find the variable with this name here, bang paren loc dot built-in burn variable name close paren. If you were to walk up after the localization process, the system would say there is no variable by that name, even though the compiler and the linker did see it. So one way around this that I've thought about is to not put loc variables in symbol identifiers. And then I went, that's probably not going to work necessarily because we want to be able to do this. So another option then would be to duplicate the symbol identifier and the name. So I'm getting theoretical here because I'm just kind of talking out loud. But the idea being that, notice that, this name here on this Wix bundle variable symbol, the name is only in the identifier. It's not also a field. It's not like you have name equals name here. But it could be. And in fact, if the name was a field on here, this name would have been localized. And if we used the name to be put into the burn manifest, then this would have everything would have worked. So that's one solution, is to say that anytime we're using something that can be a localized identifier that ends up in the final result, that we also create a field for it that gets localized. Therefore, or in that case then, when this name gets localized, the identifier doesn't change. The localizer changes this value, it replaces it with whatever. So what was this? This is built-in burn variable name. Let's say the value of this is, I don't know, foo, right? We probably could go look and see what the loc file actually changed it to, but let's say it was foo. Then the identifier would stay bang, paren, loc, burn, built-in variable, but the name then here, this value would change to foo. And that allows us to keep the fact that the identifier as it was authored was this, and the value then through the localization process changed it, and it goes here. So that would work, but I'm concerned about that there may be many cases where we're doing this, where there's a loc variable in the identifier and we're flowing it down. So that would be a very large change to the system to say, identifiers have to, you'd have to go and check every single identifier to see if it contains data that gets localized and bring it over to the name. So that's, while this is clean and kind of purist, I don't know that it would work out well. Current code is relying on the linker to cache multiple variables with the same name as a collision and failing. Yeah. So Sean brings up another issue, is that when the name flows through the compiler, or when an identifier flows through the compiler, the linker then will go through and, as I said, connect any references to those IDs together and glue back all your fragments into one big product. I mean, that's the magic of the linker. That's the purpose of the linker. And the other side of it is that as the linker does that, it also ensures that to do that, it has to make sure that there are no cases where multiple symbols of the same type have the same identifier. So you can't have two variables both named foo, or in this case, you can't have two variables both named bang, paren, loc, built-in burn variable. And the linker will basically say, hey, you have to find this symbol in two different places. This probably is something you've seen in your compiler spit this out. When it's going through making sure that all the symbols that can be referenced are unique, it then spits out errors when it says, hey, you can't do this. You cannot put variable that and give it value 2. The compiler will be like, that's fine, I compiled all that. And the linker will come along later and go, no. I don't know which one you mean if you name both of these the same. So that's bad. And there are the bind process that downstream takes advantage of that fact that you cannot that the symbols are unique, or that you will not hit a case where there are two variables that are both the same value, because the binder doesn't want to have to go through and double check and say, hey, I'm going to put these two variables in the burn manifest and burn's going to set the value. It's like, it doesn't want to have to turn around and check again and say, hey, are all the names on the variables unique? It could, and in some complex cases, the linker doesn't always catch them, so we have to catch them in the binder. They're really complicated cases. But not this. And this is a perfect case where your burn expects there to be one variable, each variable to have a unique name, and therefore when the linker verifies this, it should all be good. Break it all out. And I don't think loc variables violate that, because when you build, you can only have one value for this loc variable. So you can't get into a situation where you build a bundle and you build it and you say built-in burn variable name in your loc is foo, and then you build that same bundle in the same time and you say and loc built-in burn variable name is also bar. So you can't get a situation where this variable name essentially gets multiplexed into two different variables based off a loc variable. You have to build them one at a time, therefore there will only be one value. So that's why when you have a loc file, you will get errors if you attempt to load multiple loc files that share identifiers. You'll say, hey, this loc identifier is already defined in this other file. You can't have collisions there. So that's a good point, Sean. I don't think that's a problem here because these will only get resolved once. The real question is changing identifier. Changing the identifier. For me, that's the real thing I'm just kind of struggling with. If we go look at identifier real quick. Yeah, so the identifier is an access modifier, which is new in v4. Yeah, I don't think that was in v3. Oh, but they could collide if they resolve to a variable that already had value. Yes, you're right. So, okay, so Sean brings up a very good point. This is a problem, and this is actually a problem in v3 too. You could have, we'll set this to, I don't know, it doesn't matter, 5. So you could have variable name foo, and then you could have this loc variable here, and if this case then, when loc, if this value resolved during the backend to that, you're right. This is just one more case where these backend chains, that's, all right, let me step back and say when walk through, I'm saying we have a problem in Wix v3, pretty deep in Wix 3, that ever since, because of these abilities to change things at the bind backend, there are cases where we've had checks in the compiler that can be bypassed, where it's like, oh, that's a variable. Well, I don't know if that's going to turn into a number or a string or whatever, so I'm going to let it go. And then we rely on, sometimes there's error checking, but a lot of times trusting the user that they don't put bad data into bind variables that bypass the compiler check and then get hit, and the backend then has to be like, oh, you gave me a bind variable that turned into a number, but it has to start with an underscore or something, and the compiler has that check. And that, so like, for example, imagine this loc bind variable turned into the number 6. That's not a valid name for a variable. A variable has to start, I think it has to start with an underscore or letter. So that's, if you want to use 6, you have to do underscore 6 or whatever. Or actually, it evaluates to $sign or anything, right? That variable, we have to check that. And these bind variables bring up the boogeyman that we did not handle in v3, and we started adding more checks in v4, and there's of the fact that we have to double check anything that can have a variable in it and validate that it did not then collide. And I've kind of just shelved that whole problem as I've shelved that problem in v4. We didn't solve it in v3 either. Or it's a problem in v3. We have not tackled this thing at a large scale in v4, but it is still a weakness in the backend that these bind variables can bypass checks, and then the end result is that you get in the best case you get a decent error message that tells you, hey, you two variables with the same name. In the medium case, you get duplicate key in dictionary kind of issues. And in the really bad case, it slips through and we don't catch it, and then you end up with runtime weirdnesses. And all those things have happened. So there is certainly a space where we could go a feature, a very large undertaking, to essentially harden the backends so that they don't depend on the compiler nor the linker for validating this kinds of information. The binders essentially have to be very skeptical of the input, aka don't trust that the compiler did the work for them. The compiler did some amount of digestion, but the backend has to do more. Yeah, so Sean, you're right. This absolutely can happen, and it's a large-scale problem that we probably just have to reapproach holistically to target. I think it's just a lot of work in all of the various pieces of the backend to not trust the data that they got. I think that's the only, well, off the top of my head, that's the only solution. But in v4, not tackling that whole problem yet. We've done some surgical checks, but not all of them all up front. The v4 introduced this identifier problem where these are not being localized. And the easiest solution is to just update the identifier post, or when we update these, when we resolve bind variables in identifiers. I'm certain they're just being skipped right now. And if we do that, this does not exist. If we do that, then it's not different than Wix 3. Yeah, it's not different than Wix 3, but there is a lost feature here. So let me talk about why I'm not super thrilled, or why I'm thinking through the challenges of that. So if we look at the fields here, and we look at the fields in, so this is the raw data layer underneath the compiler, linker, and everything. You can see we're down in Wix toolset.data. I'm in the decompiled output, but it's fine. So one of the things that Wix does now in the when it's building all of these symbols and their fields is it keeps track of the previous values. So it essentially creates a linked list of all of the old values that were assigned to a field. And you're like, well, what does that mean? Well, if we walk through, when you do the compiler and the linker, and then you get to the bind variable. So let's say, like in this case, I'm looking at these. Yeah, so in this command line, this condition is a field. In this data for this command line, there's a variable. So the initial value is this string, and it goes through, and that's fine. And then when the resolver comes along and says, okay, your post compile, your post link, we figured out the stuff that you actually need inside your final output. We should have all the symbols, we've collected them, we figured out what the final output's going to be. We now go through the loc process and we replace all those things that had loc variables with their actual value based off the loc value passed in. So hey, we're replacing everything with German or Japanese or English, whatever language we're doing, Klingon. So we find this variable, this field, and we say, all right, the value for a nonsense execute code is foo, and whatever, it doesn't matter. Foo, it gets set in here. What happens is that the data model actually, it's kind of, I guess maybe it's a stack. I said it's a linked list, but it's kind of a stack. It says, all right, assign the new value foo to this condition field, but then it remembers the old version, which was this bang bloke nonsense kind of thing. Thank you, Bob, for the Klingon. I know I could count on him for real language stuff. All right, anyway, so it keeps track of all the values that have been assigned to a field. So as you work through the processing of the WIS tool set, the field, anytime a field changes, if done properly, it will preserve the previous value and put the new value on top. So it is like a stack. It's pushing the new values on top and the previous values are underneath. And you can walk back in time and see, oh, hey, this field had this value and that field had that value. And that's really important in the patching scenario, where the previous value of some things in these loc variables is needed to find what happened. And I'd have to go dig into all the patching things. But the nice thing is that if you look at a PDB, you can actually see you'll see for this command line symbol for this condition, you'll see both this value and in the PDB, whatever the value was that it resolves. So at the end of the build process, you could walk up to this thing and say, hey, what was your value? It was foo. And you're like, well, did you have any previous values? And the answer would be, oh yes, by the way, I did. I had this, bang parent look thing. You'd be like, oh, cool. Which can tell you stuff about what that was. Again, important for patching. I don't know that it's important for pretty much any of the other scenarios, but it's just built into the system. So we were just looking at the intermediate field with this whole, it has values and previous values, and then these get stacked and all that kind of good stuff. Doing what I just said there. The problem is intermediates, identifiers. I'm going to pin this here. Let's go back to my compiler bundle. The identifiers do not do that. They do not remember the ID changing because in V4, when they were designed, they weren't going to change. Which of course is wrong, as we see, which is what this bug is all about. They could have loc variables in them, so they will change. So the thing to think about here is, do we create the same sort of stack system for the identifiers so we don't lose them the way we don't lose the values? I think they still shouldn't change. That's an option. So if we stacked them, then they would look just like fields and you'd be able to have to go back in time. Now the tricky part about that, which is again why I really don't like the idea of having the identifiers change, is that you'd have to know at what point in time did that value change so you can get the world to be consistent again. You're like, all right, who referred to this at this time? You have to take all the values at the same time and push them back in time to like go back in reverse linking. So possible, but still not my favorite solution. So what's the next? So we're going to end up with identifiers, I think, with variables in them. And if we don't stack the changes, then we would need a place to put the resolved identifier. Yeah, we're just creating another lookup somewhere. Yeah, I'm just thinking, how would we go about finding all the cases, the symbols of the identifiers that could have string loc variables in them to make sure that everything gets resolved? And I think the system today, because it came from V3 in that it's just like, yeah, we will allow bind variables on identifiers. I don't think there's been a systematic change to prevent that or to handle that not being true. Throw an error if you try to create an identifier with a variable. Well, we could do that. We definitely could do that because there's actually special handling for allowing variables inside the identifiers. The issue is that we have very real cases where we need them. I think the real cases we have are in the UI extension. Let's see. Source code. I think it's in the UI extension. Yeah, let's see if we poke around the UI and see if we find a real world case of this. I'm looking for all the places. No, go away. All the places in this, where I have bang, loc, dot. And I need one that's not in a title, text to things like that. And I could be wrong. It might not be in loc. I was guessing it was in loc. I'm just kind of scanning through here looking for the things that might turn into IDs. So far, nothing. Lots of strings, which is good. I mean, this is the primary purpose of it is to have just be strings. Let's see. Yeah, okay. It might be in util then. Can I do an ID? See, the things I don't know. I think it ended with, let's try util. And in here, maybe I could do it this way. These are all error messages, right? Yeah. I really should look at the English one. I can read that one better. Failed. So that's all good. I thought there was something. Maybe util won't be the one. Oh, well, there's one. The error ID, MSI. Yeah, so here it is. This is a variable case one. Yeah. No, this is a preprocessor variable, so this is not a problem. That's a preprocessor. That handles first. So those aren't the case. Preprocessor variables. All these are preprocessor variables. Maybe it's net effects. I'm trying to remember where. I thought there was a case where this is set. ASP.NET Core ID. These are all preprocessor variables again. So I'm looking for bang parent in WXS code. Right? Bang parent, yes, in WXS code. Not those. Make this bigger again. The conditions. Bind is fine. There's one. No, that's the name. That's not one. Although it might be. Does exe package payload? It might have a separate ID though, so you could get around it. Let's see. Let's see if you can get around it by specifying an ID. Exe package payload. No, in here, in this file. Exe package payload. Oh, of course. It's in the common packages. Yeah, and you can give it an ID, right? So you can give an ID to get around that one. I think we'd be breaking quite a bit by doing that. Because I know we didn't do it. It didn't support it in Wix 3 to start with. And I'm trying, and I'm not remembering what case it was added for. But if we didn't allow it, well, I mean, let's see. That's in parse identifier. Parse get attribute identifier. That. Yep. The helper, please. Oh, the actual code, please. Let's see. So that's all the substring stuff. Common is identifier. Is a valid identifier chart. Where is the handling identifier value? This must be a common identifier value. There we go. Is identifier. Check it. Illegal identifiers. Yeah. Get attribute value. Now, can be white space. I'm looking for the case where we check. Is it invalid identifier? No. Where is the case where we check if it's a bind? Is valid bind identifier? Probably that is what I'm looking for. Nope. Well, yeah, okay. Is valid bind variable. Okay, these are all checking for versions containing is valid bind. Get attribute localized integer value. No, that's not it. Where is the case that lets this slip through? Why can't I find that? It's essentially this kind of thing. Is valid loc identifier. Localized is valid identifier. Is identifier. All right. Why am I not finding this? Oh. Let's see. Get attribute. So this does then get attribute identifier value, comma, get attribute identifier value, get attribute value, that's fine, is identifier. All right, so maybe the issue is only when we don't explicitly make it an ID. So if it's explicitly an ID, this is bugging me now. Okay, why is my memory not saying this is a problem? Let's go look for a bundle. I want something. I want a feature. I don't know if you're going to give me a file. You do have a file. Great. ID equals bang log.foo. All right. I want you to fail, please, whatever tests are using this. Should have looked to see what this is. And fine. Debug this and show me the result messages. All right, so it does not allow the loc in when we have an explicit ID. So the only time this is a problem then is when we don't explicitly use the ID to get a loc or to get a ID. For example, when we don't use get identifier to get the ID, which makes sense. Like, I'm not making sense here. Variable parse, please, parse variable element. So here we're using the name as the ID. We could add, which means we're obviously the name of a variable is different. Get attribute value, is it bundle validate variable name, and then this is going to allow. This is going to allow. This is because it's just doing attribute value. It's not getting a. It's not an identifier. The name could be an identifier. Gosh, what? All right. So I'm really wondering, how much are we breaking here? And where was that case that I thought I had that loc identifiers could be included in IDs? Like, where did I make up that scenario? That's bugging me too. All right, so one way, all right, let me back up. So one way around this would be, one, I don't know that this is correct for name. Get attribute bundle variable value. Maybe that should be more like identifier with extra checks, because it is definitely doing extra checks to make sure that it's not one of the well-known variables, which makes sense. You don't want people using the burn built. You don't want people defining their own variables that collide with the burn built-in variables. So that makes sense. But otherwise, this get attribute value is not doing any checks. It seems like the name attribute should definitely be checked for more strictly. Should be checked more strictly than what that's doing. All right, so that's one thing for the name. But there are lots of cases where the ID will come from something else. So let's go look at parse file element. All right, so that was the case that, yeah, see it's red. That I purposely added that failure case. So here the ID will give you the attribute identifier. Well, yeah, see this is, and if you don't set the ID, then we will default it. What the? Let's go find, control find down. Okay. It will create the identifier for us from the file name. So that's fine. That wouldn't create loc variables. So where did I get this case where we would have loc variables in the identifier? I swear I've seen this before somewhere. Well, that's gonna bug me now. Okay. All right, so if we look at this one, where else is this core bundle variable name used? It's got one reference. Oh, okay. Well, that's less exciting. So we could say that a name has to be an identifier. I think that's true, right? Like, is that true that bundle variable names are identifiers? It follows the same restrictions as the Windows installer, right? Underscore attribute identifier value. Did I not spell that right? And then that cat checks the guards. Depends on Burns condition parser and formatter, I guess. Right. But it would, yeah, it's not a legal identifier. Periods, oh, do variable names allow periods in them? Maybe not. They might not. They might not. So that might not, it might have to be even more strict. All right, you have to go dig into Burn to understand that. But it could be just a matter of tightening this up to not allow the loc variables through. And then I'm gonna have to go digging for the case that I thought existed. And if it doesn't exist, reprogram my memory. Where is that case? I guess I can make the change, or how would I do that? We could do something. I could find a way to find it, to go hunt that down. All right. Well, I'm definitely getting some homework after this episode. That's gonna be fun to go hunt down. And if that's wrong, that would actually be really good. I'm really afraid I'm gonna go find the case. Oh yeah, this is the case where it happens. If that's true, all right. So here's what I'm thinking. So even if I do find that case, let's say I do go and find the case where that ID is currently being logged. It's possible we may be able to again create the ID and then create a separate field for those cases that do then get localized. So if we wanted to, in this case, have names get localized, we could put them there. And that could be the escape hatch of the way out. It's like, here's the identifier. It does not have a loc identifiers in it or anything like that. And then here's a field that we put that in, or where we could put the field in. And I'm hoping I could find whatever it is my memory's remembering and put that in there. Otherwise, I'm afraid we're going to do this and have to roll it out and then find all the people where it creates a problem. Or where people be like, hey, I used to be able to put this loc variable in this spot, in this identifier, and now I can't in v4. That's broken, and then we're gonna have to go back and find the, oh yeah, that is broken. The question is, how many cases are there? This does not seem to be one. We can, since the file ID is the ID, putting loc variables in names seems, maybe we just don't allow that. I think this attribute identifier may not be the correct syntax. We need to go double check to see if this is correct for burn variables. I'm going to be surprised if dot is allowed in burn variables. That's the one that I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure the rest of the rules apply. And that'll be, so worst comes to worst, we just have to add an extra kind of validation for burn variable names. That's not done. And then validate the burn variable names. All right, so there's only one reference to this. I saw it got, there's a, where was Control-C, this. Okay. Oh, the bundle validator. This is what I wanted to see. Where are the places that, yeah, okay. Right, in the back end. Really? Okay. Not as popular a function as, no, that's not the right string. Control-C, Control-Shift-F, find all references to validate bundle variable name. There we go, that's better. All right, there we go. No, that's the actual call. Oh, there's a reference now. Just catching up. There we go. This is inside the backend validator command. So validate the variables here. Okay. Which makes sense. Return this, that. I'm just trying to figure out all the places this is used. Validate a search. Okay. All right. I wonder if we still have to do this. If the symbol IDs can't have loc variables in them, then they can't get changed and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, all right. Okay, homework for me. This right here, variable loc name. All right, so homework for me ended with this. Homework. Figure out why I thought there were real cases where bind variables would flow through the linker. That's one. I want to go find that. Okay. Two. Determine the full set of restrictions on bundle variable name to encode in a check in the compiler. All right, cool. Currently, compiler is very lax. All right, cool. That's true. The third thing was evaluate if, what we were just looking at, if all of perform backend validation command is necessary. If necessary, wow, that was weird. I'm giving up on my spelling today. If necessary, if compiler does the above check. If this is true, like if it doesn't need to, that goes against the theory that the backends need to do more validation than they do today. Okay, that's what I wanted to capture. I will be able to remember enough off of that. But on the upside, we got the MSU thing done. The preprocess thing was just a test. That was awesome. And this variable name look variable, I knew was going to be sitting here staring at it, but I kind of want to do it on stream so you guys could see the thinking process of all right, if I do this, then that, or this, or that, or this, or that. And there's all these repercussions of the different decisions. And it is interesting to then say, hey, if we can avoid having this look variable because my memory is wrong, that would be way simpler. We need to discuss 3 during a meeting. Sure, I think a lot of it is needed. I just want to understand that if it's doing those checks and the compiler's doing those checks, then what it does makes sense to me in the binder, but then my memory of the loc variables being fuzzy means that maybe it's not as important as I thought it was. Again, I need to go figure out why I thought there were real cases where bind variables flow through linker. And after that, then a whole lot more things will come through. So that's my homework for this. I will be back in a week. We will do all this. Actually, I'll be here tomorrow. We'll do in the stream and we'll be talking about triage. That's what we're going to do in this meeting tomorrow, and anything else that people want to bring up if they attend. And we will do that. So I'll be back in a week. You guys keep coding. You know I am.